Right. Welcome to another special edition of
Yep.
Out the Box Talks. I'm your host, Cril. I got my brother A-Level right across from me. What's going on,
There's no
bro?
doubt, no doubt. It's A-Level the Wiz. You know what it is. South Bronx finest, A-Level the Fly is here to do it up again, you know?
That's what's up. Now I gotta give an extra shout out to the studio that we are using. Shout out to Break Bred Studios. This is a whole new spot based out of Brooklyn, New York. See, I somehow always gotta come back home. You know what I mean? Like I gotta find my way back home. But shout out to Break Breads and all the wonderful people
Word
here
up,
that
word up.
is creating a platform for us to utilize in this podcast world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be out here in BK, Williamsburg, just chilling and just being able to be on this platform that Break Bread has offered, to us. And let's do it. We can take off from here.
That's what's up. So, let me first start off by just kind of like apologizing to the fans out there. It's been a little while. You guys have heard a new podcast from us. Man, to be honest with you, a lot of priorities have shifted in business and personal life. Just a lot of things happening. So I had to take a little break. Me and A-Level took a little break, but we are back. And thankfully, we're in a new space. So you should see a lot more happening from us. We'll continue our guest interviews and we'll continue our insightful talks dealing with progressing hip hop and paying homage to hip hop. So, A-Level, it is a pleasure to have you here,
Of
my
course. You
brother.
already know it.
You
You already
know,
know it. Yeah.
we got so much we're gonna talk about, man. Want to give people a little update on things happening in hip hop that we've been talking about lately.
Yeah, well, basically, it's a lot of albums that drop. You got the Little Brother album that dropped,
For real.
Rhapsody, um,
Word.
so many projects. You got the Pete Rock Skyzoo project that came out. It's a lot of dope music to talk about. A lot of good things we're about to get into. Once again, we push the envelope on this show, and I know there's a lot of podcasts, 100,000 podcasts out there, and they're all great. We love them, but what we try to do here is we reserve the right to be selective with how we critique and how we criticize the things. A lot of people like to try to be politically correct, and we don't pull no punches. What we do on this show, we just tell it how it is, and hopefully you can grow from the discussion that we have here.
True indeed, man. For real, for real. So like you did kind of start off by highlighting some of the projects that just recently came out. My favorite project so far, well, recently, let me say that because I got a lot of favorites for the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's getting to that point where we got to put together our top 10, man.
Yeah.
So it's coming up.
Uh-huh.
But I got to definitely big ups Little Brother, man. They put that album out that just came out, man. And they just basically, I think it took like 9 years for them to come back together. You know what I'm saying? So like their new project, I'm really loving it from beginning to end. If you are a fan of Little Brother and you've heard the Minstrel Show, this is like Minstrel Show Part 2.
Right.
And that was like one of my favorite albums from them in their whole catalog. And I mean, they don't have a big catalog, but like they're so impactful as a group in hip hop that when you just think about the releases that they've had while they were together as a group, it's just a beautiful thing to see them come back together, man.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on LB, man?
Well,
coming
for
back?
me, I came into Little Brother with the listening.
Word.
The listening for me is wow. That's such a great album, and it came about at a time when sampling had just kind of really came back into the fold with hip hop. I mean, we were coming out of the era of the whole Swiss Beats, Pharrell Williams, Timbaland era, where everyone was buying a Trinity and a Triton keyboard and doing their one finger beats and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And not really knowing how to play chords and things of that nature. And everyone was scared of sampling. So we had producers like Pete Rock and Premier, and suddenly they're not as popular anymore, right? But here you come that an album drops, the Blueprint drops, and Kanye West and Just Blaze, they're at the frontier of this whole renaissance of the soul sampling again. You know, bringing that back to the fold with what RZA was doing, and you know, bringing that chipmunk soul and innovating that whole chipmunk soul back.
Right.
So Ninth Wonder, you know, from Little Brother was one of those producers that to me he just sounded like just a more modern version of Pete Rock, and I was like missing that soul, and hip hop was missing that soul, and that's what I heard a lot on the listening, track for track, and then it's just like it's just a straight playthrough, you know, and then of course going into the minstrel show. It's funny that you bring up that topic because I was watching the premium Pete show, and the little brother was on there.
Word.
And they discussed
I caught that.
You know, and they was discussing the making of this album and how this came about from a concert. I believe.
Yeah, they did a show. I think it was in NC in North Carolina. I could be wrong on the location.
Yeah.
But it was like a surprise show as them as a group. People ain't expect it, and that kind of started this whole talk about a reunion for Little Brother.
And from that talk, from those talks, and from the concert that actually went down and it happened, okay, now we're gonna try to make a reunion album, which everyone was looking forward to, with not just, you know, Pooh and Fonte, but Pooh and Fonte and Ninth Wonder, and trying to see if they can, you know, rekindle that magic. But unfortunately, in terms of what they explained, was they tried to do that, and the very same thing that broke them up was the very same thing that they still struggled through with trying to make this album.
Wow.
And, you know, Fonte was just basically saying that around the time when the minstrel show was made, you know, Ninth Wonder really wasn't as involved. And he kind of just, as his career started to get bigger and bigger, you know, he started focusing more so on the music that he was doing. And they were kind of left to themselves to try to piece stuff together. So that by the time they broke up, you know, it was no more real Ninth Wonder beats anymore. They were messing with Crisis and, you know, so many other different producers. And now, I love the metaphor and the analogy that he used. He was like, while you were gone, you know, Daddy was gone, we were trying to figure out how to live life on our own without you. And Ninth Wonder's big gripe was the fact that he wanted this album to be solely and completely produced by him and the Soul Council, and that's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
They
From
wanted
what I
different people.
understand too was it was more so even just Ninth. You know what I mean? Because I seen the interview, and if you listen to the album, to be honest with you, like I don't even think it's missing Ninth. You know what I mean? Like, like it's not a bad thing that they don't have Ninth. You know what I mean? Because that sound, that Little Brother sound, is there. You know, but I was a little disappointed to hear that too, because I think the true Little Brother fans want to see. Well, let me not use the word true, but I would say like those dedicated fans they obviously want to see all three of them back together. But I'm not mad at this angle. Maybe it was the best thing, you know. But yeah, I heard that too, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nothing like a reunion, you know. It's nothing like hearing, because people started out a certain way. And ultimately, we get it. They go different places and they do different things. But what makes that even more fulfilling is when you can come 360 degrees and say, here, from everything that we've learned on our travels and our journeys, this is what we have to offer the fans at this point in time. And if we can still have that magic and it be even more beautiful this time around. You know, fans got cheated out of that because of that disagreement. You know, I'm just wondering, like, wow, you know. And which brings us into our topic of what we are going into is groups, hip hop groups. What keeps them together and what breaks them up?
Word. That's a powerful topic too, man. And I feel like it's a topic that it's been touched, you know, a number of times, but no real focus. We haven't seen too many people focus on this topic. And you know, thanks to A-Level conversation we were having yesterday, we thought that this would be a really good topic to talk about, because there's a lot of movement happening with classic hip-hop groups at this current time, right? We know Little Brother just got back together. We also are gonna see a Gangstar album coming out with DJ Premier. It's like a, I would say, half posthumous album
Right.
because late great Guru has passed. But yeah, that's a classic group. We about to see a new Black Moon album. These are like
Woo.
classic groups. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That
Legendary.
have laid their mark. And there's an interesting thing to think about when it comes to groups that have stayed the course, like the Roots. Like what are some other groups that have stayed the course?
De La Soul.
De La Soul. Wow, that's a huge, yeah,
De La
definitely.
Soul.
And they've been through a lot.
They've been through
A lot with the industry,
especially
man.
what they're still going through right now. Still fighting Tommy Boy for masters. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they're still fighting for 3 feet high and rising. And these guys have been all the way to the White House now. You know what I'm saying? And dropping the anonymous nobodies and things of that nature.
Yeah,
and finding crowdfunding situations, but
Definitely.
still fighting for their first baby.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Which is a whole other discussion we
Right.
could have, right? In terms like of how the industry has affected certain artists that we look up to and we have a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm always curious to know, like, what's that ingredient that keeps these groups together? What do you think is that factor?
I think groups, it still comes down to the ego.
So
At the end
lack
of the
of
day,
ego.
lack of ego, humility.
Okay.
At the end of the day, like us being able to keep this mindset of we haven't got on yet. We haven't made it yet. We haven't broken through yet. If you could keep that same kind of mindset, because when you're in that mindset, no one's thinking about, oh, I'm the man. I'm the reason why we got this. And I'm the reason. When you start to hear more I in the narrative, that's when it's the beginning of the end.
That's easier said than done. When you're talking about groups who they begin to have a new identity individually as they grow, right? So similar to Wu-Tang Clan, right?
Right.
This is a group that
That documentary of Mikes and Men, man.
we got so much that we can talk about that. But like this is a group that from the beginning there was gonna be identities, that were gonna stand out. Like when they first came out, you had METHOD Man, that already was set up. And I mean that's due to, I'm sure, the visionary mindset of RZA. But like I don't think groups prepare for that individual success
They
within
never
the
do.
group.
Never
And
do.
how they gonna deal with that,
I mean, you get caught up in the fun of it. People get caught up in the fun and the creativity, which is what you're supposed to be focusing on. But somewhere in there, in the fun and the creativity in the beginning, we have to really stick to an oath, like y'all, like no matter what happens, because success can destroy people.
Word up.
You think success actually helps you, it can destroy you. We have to make an oath amongst ourselves to say, hey, listen, no matter what happens, it's about Wu-Tang.
Yeah.
We're a family. We're not going to allow, success to destroy us. We're going to stay, humble and connected to the very same thing as to why we started to do this in the first place. Because as the money comes, people are going to go their separate ways. It's just a human thing. I think that's a human thing that's going to happen.
Yeah. That's the other element. It's like, I did say earlier, I feel like we don't know if groups prepare for this, but is it something you could really prepare for, But I think you said a key word, humility. Like, one of the things that Fonte was saying as to why him and Pooh got back together had to do with humility. Like, he was saying that, what was it he said? He said that he had went through a series of changes, you know, in the music industry, made a lot of progress, but it was just this one thing that he felt was missing, you know. And he, in the interview, I think it was the interview, yeah, he did the interview with Premium Pete. He was saying that he said it was Fife's passing that really hit home. He said like he was already on the path to doing that, but when Fife passed, it hit him in a way that made him say, you know what, I gotta go back and I gotta reach out to Pooh, you know. And I think that's like real mature, you know, like that's what everybody strives for. Interestingly enough, even though this is not a group situation, I just think about what Nas and Jay were able to do, right? They were not
Right.
a group, but throughout their industry beefs, which is what I would think it was mostly based on, they were able to step up as men and be like, yo, we always talk about the controversies in hip hop and all the negative stuff that goes down, but like, that's an example of two grown black men deciding, yo, let's get this right and let's make it better.
And you heard what you just said? Grown men.
Word.
Maturity.
Yeah.
Maturity doesn't always come with youth.
Yeah. And they say hip hop is a young man's sport. So
You know, it's maturity.
Yeah.
Because they saw the Biggies and the Tupacs. They lived through all of these beefs, and they seen exactly where those beefs go. I'm not gonna die for something I love to do, and I'm not gonna die. You know, I'm not gonna die based on you trying to kill me and me trying to kill you, because we can't get any growth from that. There's no positivity that comes from that. At the end of the day, it's just words. We're battling with words. If you saying something to me and now I want to go pick up a gun and want to take your life, well, then I lost. I lost the battle.
Word.
So for them to be the two figures that they were and that they still are, to come together and actually send a message to the hip hop nation and to the world that we can be superstars, hip hop superstars, and still come together and say, hey, listen, it was just a battle. Just like two boxers in a ring. You come out and you touch gloves when you start the fight, you know, and at the end of the fight, regardless of whether I'm on the canvas or you're still standing, we're going to hug at the end, because this was just about competition.
Yeah, yeah.
This wasn't about, you know, our lives being lost.
Yeah, yeah.
So for them to do that was powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
Black
And I mean,
Republicans was powerful.
it was definitely some personal stuff happening there too, even though I said it was like mainly industry beef, but like the fact that they had some personal stuff too and they were able to overcome it, that's even, you know, even more commendable, you know what I mean?
And that still comes from a mature spirit.
Word.
You have to be mature enough to say, hey, listen, you know.
And that's a true leader, you know what I'm saying? Being able to put the crap in the past that affected you and move forward, you know what I'm saying? Not everybody's able to do that, but I think we could look at examples of that in hip hop, you know, and in other forms of.
And bringing it back
Black
to
culture
the little
too.
brother with the Tribe Called Quest, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because, you know, at the time,
With Fife, yeah.
with Fife dying, they were broken up.
Right.
They were on a path to doing their reunion album. So here we have a group, we're talking about Little Brother, they broke up, and they're trying to get back together. But it's funny that Fife's death was of a group that had already broken up and they were getting back together, set off a catalyst with them to get back together.
Interesting.
Because we all saw Beats, Rhymes, and Life. I mean, we saw that movie. And what broke that group up, the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, Fife wanted to be a sports journalist, and, you know, his thing was basketball and things of that nature. And, you know, Tip was the genius, the musical genius of the group. And all of a sudden they start differences in opinion. Everything is about you. Everything is about this. And then the group breaks up.
I think there's that ingredient of you actively wanting to make it work too. You know, you got some people that's just like, and forget it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to revisit that past.
Right.
But when you decide, look, I want to make it work. And I think as fans of hip hop, we also have to be respectful enough to say, you know what, things may not be the way we ideally want it. Life doesn't even go like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of the reasons why, I don't hold my breath for like releases that they've been talking about for years.
Right.
Like Detox by Dre or like Mad Villain 2 or like I'm not even holding on for it. Like when
Jay
it happens, it
Electronica.
happens. Oh yeah, Jay Electronica. Goodness gracious, like I just don't even think about that no more. You know what I'm
For real.
saying? So I mean, I think with Little Brother it was like a surprise. They kind of just came out of the woodworks. Like you heard there was speculation that they were gonna, they were definitely gonna come back, but like the day before the album release, they put out a message on social media saying that it's gonna be coming out. So if you haven't checked that album, please go check it out. We are recommending you go check it out. It's called May the Lord Watch from Little Brother, which comprises of rapper Fonte, Nutigalo, and rapper Big Pooh. Really good album. It's one of those albums that you don't really have to be heavy into lyrics to listen to, but what resonates the most for me on that album is it's on some grown man-ish. And I know that's been thrown around about this album a lot, but like it's really for if you like, in your 30s, late 30s, 40s, like this album is for you.
Right.
They talk about not wanting to go to the clubs no more and how it doesn't have an effect on them
Right.
like it used to, and it's just grown man stuff, like for real. Not saying that if you in your 20s you can't listen to it,
Right.
but I mean it really resonates with that grown man spirit, and that those that can relate to what it's like to be an adult. If you got kids, if you are married, if you're divorced, whatever. Like if you've been through some stuff as a grown adult, like this album resonates.
And we need more records like that.
Word. That's what hip hop is supposed to be about.
It's supposed to address where you are. Hip hop is under the impression that a lot of people are under this impression that hip hop is just a young man's thing, of which it started out with youth culture, but it is now what 40, 45 years old. I mean, how old is it now? So now you have people in hip hop that are great grandparents.
Yo, that's deep.
Where the music for those people?
That's deep, kid.
We listening to trap, and that's not a knock against trap or whatever kind of music of the day is going on right now. But where are the music that address the people that are the mothers and fathers and parents and take their kids to school and people are soccer dads and soccer moms? Where is our music? What can we connect to? So it's great that you have a record that Little Brother puts out and says, listen, this is where I'm at right now. So people can identify with that,
Word. So I want to actually move on to our next topic, but before we go to that, I do want to take some time to just kind of shout out the social media networks that we're connected to. So definitely go follow us on Instagram at Out the Box Media. That's OUTDABOX Media. If you're not following us yet, you could also catch us on Twitter at Out the Box Media. We're on Facebook at Out the Box Radio. So the Facebook page is Out the Box Radio, OUTDABOX Radio. Now we also have a Facebook group. Usually you're invited into the group. It's called Hip Hop Thinks Out the Box. So if you're on Facebook and you want to be a part of our group, we tend to have a lot of discussions on that group, and we do a lot of updates on what's happening in hip hop in this group. But let me just say this. I'm going to put the disclaimer out.
Also, before you even say that, make sure that everyone knows that it's Out the Box. Not THE, y'all.
Yeah.
DA.
Yup, that's, OUTDABOX Media or OUTDABOX Radio. Now, so let me put the disclaimer about the group, right? Because we've been having some people coming in the group, putting whatever they want to post in the group. And I'm going to tell you straight up, like, you're going to be out. Your post going to get deleted, and you're going to be out. Like, this is a group that was created for the purpose of, updating, folks in the group about all the dope stuff happening in hip hop and the underground hip hop world. So if you're gonna come in the group and you're gonna share information, or maybe it's new music that, is not saying you can't self promote yourself, but like it can't be only about that. And your stuff gotta be dope. Like, don't just be putting stuff up because you decided, you just want to rap in your basement. You know what I mean? And put up clips of that. Like, real talk. Like, if it's dope, cool. But like, I be seeing some funny stuff on the group, and I'm telling you right now, like, if you come on there with disrespect, like blatantly trying to be disrespectful, like, you out. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, like, we want you to be a part of the group. And if you genuinely care about this platform, or this you have the same love for hip hop that we do, then definitely, make sure you hit that up. So it's Hip Hop Thinks Out the Box. So I'm not trying to scare nobody, but I'm just saying straight up, like, if you on there on some BS, like, you out of there. You know what I mean? So yeah. Word. Anything you want to say about that, A-Level?
Yeah, it's just basically we need to. It's a page, and it's an area where you can come and have interesting, thought-provoking discussions about hip hop and life. Get put up on new music. Actually, even if you want to post stuff from past hip hop, old school stuff,
Word.
And you get a blast from the past. And the other day I just did a post of the Platinum Pipers.
Word.
The Shotgun joint where Dilla was on there, and that was a real tough album,
Detroit,
shout out to YG and them dudes and the Blink 47 family. I haven't heard from them in a long time, bro. It's time for some more projects. It's time for some more stuff, man. We need to hear some more of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, indeed. I haven't heard from YG in a minute.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's doing stuff.
Where you at?
Yeah. Speaking of Detroit, we got this brother Apollo Brown. He got a new album coming out. The album title is escaping me at this point, but I gotta say, I don't know right now I gotta go into my phone and check it out, but I know that I think the album's supposed to come out in October. So by the time you guys hear this episode, October will be here. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Apollo Brown got a new album coming out, and I think it's like a dedication to Detroit, and it only features Detroit artists.
Dope.
So like everybody from Black Milk to Elzai to
Royce.
I think Guilty's on there. Like
right.
Anybody that has made a mark in the hip hop scene for the most part in Detroit is on there. So big ups to Apollo Brown, one of my favorite producers, man. Like his sound is just like when you hear it, it gives me the same vibe that I hear when I listen to Primo's beats, because it has a signature sound, and it's extremely soulful, man. So it's the year's almost over, but might see some surprise releases, man.
It's some more stuff, Ghostface Killah. And Ghostface Killah's album,
the new joint, right?
He never disappoints, bro. That is one guy who always drops an album, and he's not changing for the masses. He's not trying to change and make this kind of record and make that kind of record. He gives you exactly that same soulful Ghostface Killah. He's still rhyming over them tracks. Mm-hmm. He's still giving you that grit. He never seems to disappoint when it comes to that.
Word.
Also, the Von P album.
Oh yeah, Von P.
Yo.
Yeah, man. It's like a dedication to Brooklyn, man.
Love that album.
Dope album.
Love that album. It's a dope album, yo. Go get that.
Let me just shout the names out of these albums. The Ghostface Killah album is called Ghostface Killahs,
right.
With a plural S. The Von P album is called City for Sale. And I will get back to the
who did the beats on that? On
it was
that
him
album?
Actually.
Von P did all the tracks.
Yeah, he actually read an article where he was saying that this was big for him because he never actually produced. Because he's done production before for other people, but to actually do a whole album
for
himself,
right.
with him doing the beats was big for him. So I really like the album. It's called City for Sale. On the album cover, it's actually an image of the Slave Theater in Brooklyn. So if you from Brooklyn, or if you familiar with Bed-Stuy on Fulton Street, there used to be a slave theater. They used to do a number of you know, like community activist events. I think there, really, it was a staple in Brooklyn, and looks like they closed the actual theater down.
Interesting.
So it was like a commemoration to that. With the album cover I see, and even Skyzoo on the new album that he has with Pete Rock, he also shouted out the theater as well. The idea of the feeling that heads that live in Brooklyn felt when the theater closed down. So yeah, man, a lot of dope releases that have come out. Even books, right?
Right.
In hip hop, like Rakim, right?
Yeah.
And I know You God from Wu-Tang, which we're gonna get back to Wu-Tang. I want to get back to them.
Right.
You God released a book too, but let's talk about this Rakim book, Sweat the Technique.
Mm-hmm.
I have not gotten my hands on the book yet, but I've read a little bit about what it's supposed to entail. But I know you got a chance to catch the Breakfast Club interview. What's your thoughts on this new book with Rakim and this move that he's making?
I think the new book with Rakim is dope. I think it's essential. More of us, as black men, and just in hip hop in general, needs to be just releasing more intelligent stuff. Not that albums are not intelligent, but for the fact that you can put out literary work, I think is great. Especially if you're talking about how you wrote, and giving out pointers and tips to people that are coming up in the same career field as you are. I think that's great. As far as the interview on the Breakfast Club is concerned, he didn't really say anything that much that I didn't already know from previous interviews, like the Vlad interviews and other interviews in other places. As far as the Summer Madness thing with Will Smith, like, if y'all not familiar, Will Smith, y'all, Fresh Prince, shout to them, and Jazzy Jeff, they released a record called Summer Madness back in the late 80s, early 90s, I believe. And it was always this rumor that Rakim wrote Will Smith's verse. And Charlamagne the God asked him about it, and he was like, well, so what's up? And he was like, did you write that? And he was like, nah, I didn't write that. He didn't write that.
Where did this rumor stem from?
I don't know where it came from.
Wow.
It's just like, when you listen to that song,
it sounds like something like,
here it is, a groove slightly transformed, just a bit of a break from the norm, just a little something to break the monotony of all that hardcore jams that have gotten to be a little bit out of control. You know what I'm saying? So you hear it. And Rakim acknowledged that. He said, you can hear my flow up in it. So what I used to say when they brought that rumor to me, he was like, yeah, I wrote it. He still owe me money. You know what I'm saying? And he used to just say it, but he was like, they asked him if he ever approached Will Smith about it. He was like, nah, I didn't approach him. He was like, I haven't seen him yet. To talk to him and say, hey, listen, man, you jack my style, you jack my sound, my flow. Right. But Will Smith has never gotten in touch with him about it.
Has Will Smith ever said anything about being inspired by Rakim?
Not to my knowledge.
I would think he is, right? Like most people are.
Right.
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge, though. But he also went into other things, which was interesting. He spoke about, they asked him on something that he made mention in his book about when he was inside his mother's womb. He heard Dr. King speak from then. Like, Dr. King was ministering to him, from the womb, and how that played an effect on him, as a man when he went out to do things creatively, because that was the time period that his parents were from. It was the whole civil rights generation, so for him to receive that stuff and not even being born yet, that stuff is real. When we talk about when people, when women are pregnant with children, what you play around them is important. what they hear is important. You think that they're not paying attention to that, and they're not absorbing that, but they're absorbing that early. What are kids absorbing now? The children of this generation, the people that are grown in this, what were they absorbing? And that was just a key point to me. I was like, that really resonated with me. Is that the reason why a majority of it is that what we're hearing now? What we're hearing now is because, you know, the children of the crack epidemic era, these kids that have been raised in broken households and fathers not being around. And what were children in the womb hearing during that time,
It reminds me of a line that Most Def, very well, Yasiin Bey now, he said on the Black on Both Sides album, where it was asked to him, where's hip hop going? And he said, hip hop is where the people are.
Right.
If the people is messed up, then hip hop is messed up. And that statement that you just said reminds me of that. Because a lot of times we put a lot of emphasis on artists to be a certain way. But when you look at, and don't get me wrong, like I don't take hip hop music off the hook.
Right.
I love hip hop, but I'll critique it word up because it's a lot of stuff that's out there that really shouldn't be on the airwaves. You know what I mean?
It's unhealthy.
Yeah. But I do also think is a big onus on us as people. Like, what are we into? I always say, like, as an art form, if you compared hip hop to movies, hip hop doesn't get the same respect as like films. And I know hip hop is a genre in music, right? But just for the sake of comparing the two, when you watch a film, you sit there and you watch the film from beginning to end, and you look for plots. You look to be intrigued, right? Especially if it's like a thriller or a sci-fi film or whatever, right? When people listen to hip hop, they don't listen to it intentionally trying to listen to the lyrics. Right. It's the reason why you could be in a club with somebody who's a grandmother and they could be singing Uchi Wally, you know what I'm saying? And not know what they singing because we don't listen to what the music is saying before we recite it. We just go with the melody. We go with the hot beat, which it all has an important place, but it's about vibe. And I love vibe. I think vibe is an important part of music. But when it comes to hip hop, this is spoken word, B. Like, it
Facts.
does include beats,
Facts.
which is extremely important. But it's when you talk about hip hop, or if you just want to get even more specific, you talk about rap. It's spoken word, so it requires your attention to listen. And if you're not listening, you getting persuaded one way or the other. You know what I'm saying? You need to be able to say, yo, I'm not feeling what this person is saying here. You know what I mean? But a lot of what happens with hip hop too is a lot of bandwagoning and a lot of hype. And I'm not for the hype. If you dope and there's a hype behind you, fine. But like, I see a lot of people jumping on stuff because it's hyped. And yeah, that's just my, I know I went off into a tangent, but like, we're worried. I just went off to a tangent. But yeah, I just feel like I had to say that. You know what I'm saying?
No, that was a good point. I mean, there's responsibility that comes in hip hop that everyone has to take responsibility for. Like you said, you can't take the rappers off the hook. Can't take the rappers off the hook. A lot of rappers like to get off the hook and say, hey, listen, I don't raise kids. We ain't got no more Malcolm X's. They ain't no more Martin Luther Kings. They ain't no more Stokely Carmichaels, whatever you want to say. people are paying attention to that person on the mic.
Mm.